Pianist, coach, and educator Douglas Sumi is a frequent collaborator with many of today's leading artists and opera theaters. He has assisted conductors such as James Conlon and Emmanuel Villaume. He has also worked in concert with artists such as Renee Fleming, Placido Domingo, Carol Vaness, Joyce DiDonato, Angel Blue, Janai Brugger, and Juan Diego Flores, just to name a few. Doug served for many years on the music staff of LA Opera. In addition, he has also worked for Boston Lyric, New Orleans, Wolf Trap, Indianapolis, Ashlon, and Pacifica Opera Project. He has led singers to the top prizes of the most premier vocal competitions, from Operalia to Giulio Gari and Richard Tucker. He has also guided students of collaborative piano to acceptance into the most prestigious conservatories in the country, from Juilliard, Manhattan, New England, and more. Formerly on staff at UCLA, Doug currently serves as the chair of the voice department at Boston University. After a grueling 9-hour day of recording an album for 2 pianos and 2 voices with me, Doug graciously sat down and talked with me in my living room. No fancy setup, no elegant camera work. This is part 2 of our raw and candid conversation, right from the couch.
A person once told me that he's very cautious about using the word should. And I think about this on a regular basis because I'm constantly talking to myself in these ways, right? Like, well, you really should do this, or you shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
You should. Well, of course, there's the big ones, like, yes, you shouldn't kill somebody, or you shouldn't steal, or you shouldn't
Right.
lie. Like, those are just like the
Right.
obvious,
Right. Just let's follow the
like
laws. People.
that's
Yeah,
really,
right.
But when it gets to me being at the piano, feeling like I'm in a straitjacket because I've had this many teachers who had said, no, you shouldn't play this piece like that. No, this composer should be performed like this. No, that shouldn't be the the amount, and you sort of go like, wow, like there's just that is so anemic. There is no humanity in any of this. If I'm to just follow a bunch of rules, like if I'm going to be judged by how obedient I was to a teacher.
Right.
And that's something else that I've come across as the chair of the voice department. I've had to deal with some colleagues because I've recognized this, acknowledging a student's how good they are
Right.
based on how much they're doing what the teacher's telling them to do.
Right.
And it sort of blew my mind. I thought, oh my gosh, this teacher thinks that the student is great because that student is obeying their commands.
Obedience is the key.
Right. It's like, whoa, this is so the opposite of what it
artistry,
means to be
right.
an artist and be
Yeah.
able to explore, and like that's where that's where discovery happens, right? And so disagreement should be welcomed from an instructor in an educational environment. That's like the foundations of ancient Greece discussion and discourse, for crying out loud. You know what I mean? Like that's the basis. That's supposed to be the basis of education, and critical thinking, right? And so there is this old world master apprentice model that little by little we're chipping away at, because I think enough people have gotten therapy and realized how toxic it is, really.
Right.
And I think about Itzhak Perlman, who said when he got to Juilliard to study with what's her name, the big violin, Delay, to study at Juilliard, and she'd say, well, what do you think this is about? And Itzhak would say, well, I don't know. You're the teacher. You tell me what this is about,
Right.
and then I'll play it like. And he says, of course, that's how he teaches today. Is well, what do you think this is about? And then going from there, and honoring students' opinions, and that they should have opinions, and they're just as valid.
Right. And
right?
they should have intuition on what they think something is about. But I think, that you and I could go into a whole conversation about the education system and how that has kind of bred
Sure.
this
Yep.
whole, thing. But I really appreciate you bringing this up, because I know one of the questions I get asked often from young artists is actually similar to what we've been talking about, and picking, like, how do I know when I go to undergrad, how do I know when I go to graduate that I have found a really good teacher? And I feel like you're actually spelling out some really great things to look for.
Totally.
And also some red flags
yep.
to look for as well, to say, hey, if you do, like, right, we encourage, like, trial lessons. Like, please do not blindly go anywhere without a trial lesson, right? Wouldn't you agree with me
100%,
on that? Yeah.
100%.
I mean, like, you're
And I would even go further to say, don't even just take a trial lesson, take several. Because I find sometimes, you can sort of find the median and split the difference, versus it being just one small short lesson where that teacher is on. And this isn't to disparage teachers,
right?
But it's more of, I think a lesson is a lesson, and there's learning that needs to be done and had, and that the whole idea of a trial lesson, I almost have a problem with, because I get the function of it, and I think it's important.
Right.
But it's about learning and experiencing learning, and for the teacher just as much as the student, right? And yes, it's also to discover, is this going to be an environment which I feel I can learn?
Absolutely.
And so it's important for the student to know, like, that's what they're looking for. They are,
right.
And it's not that the teacher's necessarily bad. It might just be that's not the teacher for them, right? For what they need at that moment.
It's a fit
right?
thing. It's a complete fit. It's a personality. It's a temperament that you need or you want that this person just doesn't have. It's not. It's not always about technique. Sometimes it is about technique, right? We've both experienced issues with technique in our lives, and teachers who took us down the wrong path with technique. But sometimes it's just temperament issues as well.
Yeah. And it really is a. It is, I say, important to take maybe even a few lessons, right, with somebody that you're really interested in studying with, but also knowing the why behind it, right? Why do you want to
study with them?
Why do I need a teacher that offers these things? Right? So being able to recognize, here are the things that I'm good at, here are the things that I am not good at. And I would like a teacher that can really speak to those things that I'm not good at. Or it might be someone like I was. I didn't know what I was or wasn't good at when I was in high school. I just knew that it was, I was just a guy that could play the piano.
Right.
And I could sight read anything, That was like that was really it, and the red flags, of course. There's always that, and I didn't know those things when I was that age.
No,
I know those things now because I'm a teacher, an educator, and I see the students' experience, and I want them to have the best learning experience, and at the same time, I'm going, wow, I've got to tell these students these things because I didn't know these things when I was their age, and had I known, I was just lucky because that voice teacher that I mentioned earlier, it was an incredible pedagogue and an incredible human being and a mentor, and she's a friend to this day, but also I still see her as a person that I run things by for advice, I mean, just she's a really grounded person, and that, and so I was really lucky because of her in that time, but it can be difficult for being in high school if you don't have the resources, or if you don't even know, like, who is out there. Like, I think there's an assumption made by high schoolers that, oh, well, this person is a professor of such and such, so they'll be able to teach me, and they must be good, and
it's not their fault.
No,
because I was there, you were there,
and and you make it. But it's like, you have options, high school. You have options, and you don't know that, but you need to know you have, and there are more options now than there were when we were in school, because there are more people teaching, there are more people out there, more programs to apply for. And so there are options out there, and And if it's not the right option for you, then
Then-
you could. There's always other options. You switch.
Exactly.
You didn't sign a deal with the devil, you know. I mean, but that's
Right.
and
But
that.
for whatever reason, okay, there's a stigma about that. There's a whole thing.
Yeah.
And I don't understand where that comes from. Listen, guys, I transferred schools halfway through because I realized I picked the wrong teacher. And she made my life miserable. And I had to come to terms with that I didn't make the best choice. And you know, like Doug, same thing, small town. I didn't know what I didn't know. And
Yeah.
I made the best decision I could with the knowledge that I had. And I think
Yeah.
that's also right, the whole hindsight's 2020
Yeah.
is for a long time I got upset about that. I don't know if you've ever gotten upset about, you know.
Sure, you go
that.
down to what if.
Yeah.
What if I
oh,
did
what
this?
if-
What if I did this?
And I have to go, you know what? 17-year-old me made the best decision
That you
she
could
could
have- could- yeah.
at the moment with the information she had.
And without
then
a support system.
exactly, right? And then at least had the wisdom in 2 years to go, this is not where I belong. This
Sure.
is not where I should be.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm going to find where I do belong. And then found a wonderful teacher and then other wonderful experiences after that. So I think sometimes the greatest, bravest, most courage thing to do is to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you know, because I know there's a lot of people listening who can completely relate to us and our stories and probably
Yeah,
feel
yeah.
relieved, like, oh, good,
Sure.
they didn't grow up in the big city. They didn't know, like your town is I don't know how many people were in your town or whatever, but
And you know, I think of when I was in college. When I was in college auditioning for or looking at grad programs, and I'm going, okay, I'm going to go into a company.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm going to
Yeah.
okay. Here are the big programs,
yes,
right?
yeah.
And there were like 7
Pull
programs.
out the brochure.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah. Here are all the ones. I'm going to audition for
Mhm.
all of them. They all are asking for a different rep. Some of them overlap, but it's
Mhm.
like, okay, this is a lot of repertoire, folks.
Right.
And I don't even know I don't know how to play in this because I don't have any instruction on this repertoire because I'm in the middle of nowhere with, you know, like with a bunch of people. Yeah, so, you know,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
so, I'm already like starting, you know, from the bottom of the
Behind,
totem pole.
yes,
Right?
yes.
So then I'm just like, whatever. I'm just going to apply for stuff. So, you know, I applied for a bunch of places and I looked at all the teachers and this is where I was just practical and I saw, okay, I want to do opera. So, who are the pianists, the piano teachers of collaborative piano who have working pianists out there? So I did my research. And at this point you could do your research because this information started being put up on the internet, right? You can see here are young artists, right? And then they would have bios and it would list who they studied with. So I could see, okay, I'm like, wow, there are students of these teachers that are at all these young artist programs at all these opera houses that I would love to work at, right? So that's how I really made my decisions of like, I'm going to audition for these schools because I want these studios because these are the teachers that are putting their students into these jobs that I want. Right. And so really doing that research and reaching out and although Warren was not the person I studied with, he didn't respond to me because he's a very busy man. I still put myself out there and auditioned for Music Academy. Didn't get in. I auditioned the next year, you know. And after that next year, he said, Douglas, will you be here? Or can you stay after the day's auditions are done? Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, yeah, sure. I'm like, that's like 5 hours later. I'm like, okay, I'll just stick around. So Mom and I go get lunch or something, whatever. And I stick around till 5 or 6 when they're done. And I come back in front of the hall where I auditioned at in Santa Barbara. And there he is. And he says, so, I'm 99% sure you're not getting into the Music Academy list. And
okay, that is not what I thought you were going to say when somebody asked you to wait around for 5 hours. Okay.
So, I mean, that, you know, you never know. So, he's like, but, I'm really interested in what you can do as a pianist. I think you have a lot to offer musically, artistically, that I really don't think I could teach you. But there's a bigger problem, and that's your fingers. You don't know what you're doing with your fingers, and I can teach you that. And so here's what you need to do. I'm assuming you're applying for for Manhattan School of Music for your master's. I go, yes, I would like to. I'm planning to. And he says, yeah, and I'm assuming to study with me. And I said, yeah, that would be really nice, because I had already stalked him, right?
Right.
At least his profile,
that's probably not going to happen.
And he said, yeah. So he's like, that's great. I would love to have you as a student. Here's what you need to do to get through the audition. So, does your teacher talk about this, this, and this? I'm like, no. Okay, well, these are my big issues with how you play the piano, Douglas. Wow. And I learned more about what I needed technically in that 5-10 minute talk with him than many years of piano lessons. Wow. And
that's amazing.
And I remember it to this day, and I still think about it to this day. And so that's
a transformational moment, right? A trajectory.
It changed everything. Moment. Yeah. Yes. And so then I went back. I'm like, okay, and I went back to the scales and arpeggios and played them exactly how he told me to and what to do and whatever. And it still wasn't enough. I remember thinking, I'm still not ready, right. But at least he gave me information and I took it.
He was on the track, right?
Yeah, and I did the audition. And it didn't go great, but it went well enough, because that's where I ended up going. And that was the only the grad school I got into out of the 7 grad schools that I auditioned for.
Really?
And then Warren had one spot open in his studio, and praise the Lord, I got it. I mean, it was because that was and I had said if I don't get into one of these teacher studios that I was interested in, then I'm not going to just force myself to go to grad school because I'm supposed to, because I should. Yeah. Because there is that feeling of, I didn't get into my top school or whatever. So here's the school I got into, so I'm going to go there.
Yeah.
Because I didn't really love any of those other schools or teachers. So
that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money, and it's a big commitment for a possibly mediocre experience.
Absolutely.
And so I'm like, I'd rather be in more debt with studying with Warren than studying with somebody who doesn't have people out in opera houses working, but be in less debt just because I felt like I was supposed to go right into grad school. Right. The best thing I think any student can do, any singer can do, is to take a gap year.
Oh my gosh!
I mean, some of my colleagues think it's totally that I shouldn't be encouraging people to do that, but I quite frankly, college is hard enough that you can barely get yourself together to do good auditions and represent yourself well.
Absolutely.
And so that is something that that was a big change for me, and that set the path for me for Manhattan School of Music and then beyond. That moment, I'll never forget it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and all because I was just like, I'm just going to audition for this again because I want to go to Music Academy and study with Warren.
Yeah.
But I didn't know if I was competitive because how would I know? I don't have anybody around me that does what I do and at that level, right? And clearly I wasn't at that level, and I see now, I'm like, of course I would have not come.
But the potential was there, and someone saw that potential and pushed you in the right direction.
That's right.
With that potential, and I think that's incredible.
And you never know who's listening and for what they're listening for, right? No.
And I love that you really spoke to teachers, and because like I said, I know we're there's a lot of students that could be out there right now who are listening and kind of feel overwhelmed by what they're looking for.
Sure.
And I know one of the things that I share in my college audition breakthrough course is outcomes. Look at the outcomes of the teachers as well, right? Because if you're saying, well, I don't have a teacher in mind because I don't really know, and that's okay. But I love how you shared, you did research, right? Yeah. And that's something I encourage. Do the research, right? Obviously, like you said, take lessons with them to get a feel for it, but also look at what is being produced outside of that, right? Like
proofs in the pudding.
Absolutely, because if you hear, oh, so and so is wonderful, okay. That's great. So what are their students doing with their life?
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
That's really
How are they
fun.
singing? How are they playing? What kind of, at
Absolutely.
different levels too,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. I love that. I really appreciate you sharing that. That's
Yeah, that was a
That's
really,
really
pivotal
amazing.
personal,
yeah.
moment.
I think we've covered a ton.
I know. I think so too.
But you and
there's-
I, we could sit and talk for
we could
hours.
have covered even more.
And for
we'll
sure,
do a part 2.
we will definitely do a
Another-
part 2
yeah.
or 3 or 4. Who knows? But if you had one thing that you feel like, you know what, I didn't share this for anybody who is watching, and is like, you know what, I just, I wish I knew, or they're thinking, I wish I knew.
Mhm.
Is there anything you feel that you would want to share?
This is something that just came to mind. I feel like
Yeah.
there's probably a ton, but that's a
Mhm.
big question, right?
I know, right?
We think about students, musicians performing, studying music, whatever. It doesn't matter who it is. It's the audience. It's a judging panel. It's an adjudication panel for a competition. It's to get into a school. That everybody on the other side of the table is rooting for you.
Oh.
Like that.
Yeah.
They want you to do well. Like they really want you to do well, and they are on your team, even though
I
it
love
feels
that.
like
Yeah.
this is a panel of judges, and here's me. I have to be vulnerable and perfect now, and yes, be vulnerable, and don't be perfect because that's not interesting. That's not possible,
okay,
right?
it just
Yes,
doesn't exist.
Yeah,
Right? We can tell you after our entire week of recording,
No.
perfection doesn't exist.
I remember sitting in auditions at LA Opera with Placido Domingo to one side and his wife on the other side, and this incredible voice. She was this incredible artist. Gets up and she on the stage and she sings, and the CEO of the company was like, "Oh, well, that's a." He said something about her dress,
Oh.
and I don't know if he said anything about her voice, but Placido goes, "That's an interesting voice. That's a recognizable voice. That's is it beautiful? I don't know. Maybe it's definitely interesting, and I would recognize that timbre."
Right.
And so it's so much about being vulnerable and what is unique about somebody as an artist to put out
Absolutely.
there, and to not let anybody take that away or to wash that away or to because that's what can happen, I think, very easily. What is special about you and what you bring to this art form, and if anybody starts to try and teach that out of you,
Run.
Mayday.
Run.
Yeah.
Run.
And that we are always and we are rooting for you on this side of the judging table or auditions or whatever. Like, we are on your team, and even if it doesn't feel that way, because most auditions feel so cold,
And very sterile and serious.
and then you're supposed to like put your soul
Yeah,
out there,
right.
through this musical platform, and so knowing that it doesn't matter how sterile it feels or seems, that it can be a warm environment and an open environment and a safe environment for you to be vulnerable and share your artistry.
That's beautiful, and literally that is the most perfect thing you could say. I'm thinking about how it's the end of November, and
Sure,
most
we're on the
people-
brink.
We are, yes,
On
I
the
was going to
brink of
say it,
audition
right?
season.
We got pre-screenings in
Mhm.
process. We have auditions literally right around the corner after the new year, and this is top of mind for most people, no matter where. I don't care if it's undergrad, grad, DMA, main stage.
Sure.
It's on everyone's mind right
Yeah,
now. So
yeah.
I really appreciate you ending
Of
that
course.
way. And once again, thank you so much. And everyone, thank you for hanging with us. And we'll see you soon.